and welcome to the maiden edition of Public Conscience, a production of the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development, Primorg, supported by the MacArthur Foundation. I am Okiria Agbonsuremi, and my co-presenter, Chukwudi Okole Ubaja, is here.
Good to be here. Hello, everyone.
And there's no contest that Nigeria is caught up in the cesspool of corruption that practically drowns up all efforts towards development. Procurement processes, business agreements, and other established procedures designed to bring about fair play in business and governance are flouted with impunity all over. It all ends up in a corruption verdict which has left the nation underdeveloped.
And that will lead us into taking up corruption-related investigations by relevant stakeholders, amplify these investigations, and seek participation by all in a conscious effort to reveal that the evil that corruption is. We will focus on the need for good business ethics and best practices in governance to be employed in day-to-day activities.
And the handling of this program will receive the highest level of professionalism with balance, accuracy, fairness as our watchword. Stay with us. But we just need to go ahead. Chukwudi, how are we kicking off?
We're kicking off Public Conscience with an in-depth look at the story behind corruption in Nigeria. What is the relevance of investigative journalism as a tool to arrest corruption in Nigeria? And the in-depth look is going to come in the shape of interviews with two very prominent figures on the turf of anti-corruption.
And our first guest on the program is Dr. Kole Shetima, Director of Africa, the MacArthur Foundation. Of course, the MacArthur Foundation has been supporting a lot of efforts towards not just Nigeria, but around the world, building a nation that integrity, an Africa that integrity, a world that integrity is the watchword. Welcome to the program, sir.
Good morning, listeners, as well.
Now, tell us briefly what the MacArthur Foundation is all about.
Well, the MacArthur Foundation is relatively actually a young organization in the sense that it's now only 40 years old. It was established in 1978 from the proceeds of the wealth of John MacArthur and his wife, Catherine. Now the endowment of the foundation is around $6 billion. It makes its money primarily through investment in stock market, real estate, and other things. And that it has devoted all its resources, which is like annually about $300 to $400 million, supporting good causes throughout the world. Here in Nigeria, we opened our office in 1994. In Ibadan, and then essentially we moved to Abuja after the departure of the military administration, and we have been working here in Nigeria for that long at this time.
Dr. Shetima, this is quite interesting. Now, the program Public Conscience is happening with your support, which comes with all vigor and commitment. One would like to find out why you're placing so much faith in investigative journalism as a tool for fighting corruption and ensuring transparency in governance and business.
Well, a number of reasons. One reality is that we know that our media landscape and the ecosystem as it is now is going through a very difficult situation. We know that many of our media houses and the ecosystem is totally unsustainable. We know that a lot of them are going through a number of pressures of advertisements, of people using political influence to influence stories, of journalists who are compromised by people who are in power, enrich people and other things. So we think that given an independent resource to organizations, to journalists, whose only sole interest and ability is just to work on investigative reporting, we also know that investigative reporting takes time, it takes resources. So even with the best of intentions, media houses may not have the resources to devote for someone to spend 1 month, 2 months, 3 months to try to dig up a story. So we thought that given that kind of opportunity to people will help for them to be an independent voice, because we understand that there is a relationship between editorial independence and financial independence. And that's why we think that this is critical and very important for us to do. And we know that journalists, as we know in our constitution, have been identified as the fourth realm of our government. And unlike other professions, I think journalists are probably the only people who have been identified in the Constitution with the full responsibility of holding public officers to account. So we thought that the combination of editorial independence and the combination of the role that the media is expected to play in our Constitution has given us the opportunity to create and support this kind of work that we are doing now.
Now how much are you putting into this support over period? For over this period, you are supporting a lot of, I think it is the MacArthur Foundation that supports the most number of groups in Nigeria. How many media houses fall into and how much are you devoting to this effort?
Well, I'm not quite sure I can remember how much it is, but what I can say is that probably we are supporting about 15 media organizations and outlets, and I think that we are not only supporting English language, I think we have made a conscious effort also to promote Nigerian languages. So we have programs that are in Pidgin, some in Hausa, in Igbo, in Kanuri, in all kinds of other languages, in Yoruba, and all over the country. So we think that it is important that we take the message to the lower level. We know that yes, a lot of Nigerians can speak English and a lot of people can speak Pidgin, but we know that there is a wider audience that actually only communicates in their local language. But we also see that this is also an opportunity for us to promote our local languages, because as we know, many of the people, many languages are disappearing in the country, primarily because they are not written, primarily because they are not used as language of official communication. Also, we know that the elites and others have decided to abandon the languages, or probably also that many people have been brought up in Lagos and Abuja, where English and have become the predominant language communication, and therefore their children cannot speak those languages as well.
It's quite interesting what you've just gone through, because I begin to think as a linguist that it is also a platform for linguistic rediscovery of good old Africa.
Yes.
Quite interesting.
Yeah, because
look at what Pidgin English is doing now for the BBC and the rest of it.
Exactly.
We really are happy about it.
Yeah.
But going straight to the crux of the matter, when you look at the Nigerian situation, what comes to your mind in terms of what is really needed to fight corruption?
The public. I think the public is what is needed. We think that yes, government can play a role. It's good to have good people in government who will do the good thing and other things. But as long as the Nigerian public doesn't own this as their own fight, they do not connect the relationship between why is it that we don't have water in my own house? Why is it that my children cannot go to good school? I have to go and pay money in a private school. Why is it that my child is dying in an accident on a road and other things? Why is it that we have so many potholes and other things? When we know that governments over the years have been budgeting a lot of money for all these processes and other things, but yet, those services are not there as well. So we think that unless the Nigerian public sees the connection between their own life as to why they are what they are, and how corruption have made it possible for them that then we will not be able to achieve what we want to achieve. And that's why we think that supporting programs like this, supporting radio programs, especially because radio still maintain the lead in terms of how people get access to information. I think unless we do that one, unless Nigerians own it as this is their own fight, it is not a fight for Buhari, it's not the fight for EFCC, it's not an ICPC fight, but this is my own fight, because I want to leave a legacy for my own children. I want my children's life to be better than what I am. I want a Nigeria whereby my child can go to a primary school, regular primary school, just like I did, public school, get the quality of education that I need. I want a Nigeria whereby I can drive in the night from Kaduna to Abuja without worrying about whether I'm going to be kidnapped or not. Unless we see that as a legacy that we want to leave for our own children, then I think that if we lose the public, then we are not going to succeed in this fight.
Let me ask, you have clearly identified that the public needs to be involved, carried along, and mobilized, as well as the government. Do you sometimes engage directly with governments or anti-corruption agencies?
Yeah. We support, when this administration came into being, one of the person that the vice president did, because the vice president is someone that we at the MacArthur Foundation supported him when he was in integrity. So he invited us and our colleagues in Ford Foundation and Open Society and he said, look, you have supported me when I was in integrity and when I was in the Attorney General of Lagos State to do some of the work around reforming the legal system. Why don't you come and help the government also to see what we can do in our things? So it was in that context that we put together, the three of us, $5 million in order to support some of the government airports. So we support a number of government agencies, organizations like the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, like the work that is being done by ICPC, EFCC, yes. A number of other NFIU, and a number of the other government agencies who are also supporting, because we believe that you need the government and you need the people. So it is a combination of the two that will make the most significant difference. So even if you have a good government, if it is not being held accountable by the public and by the people, the government will not be living up to its own expectations. Yes. The same thing with the public. Even if the public keep on shouting that this is bad and this is bad, and if the government is irresponsive to the clamors and the demands of the public, then there won't be that kind of synergy that will bring about the kind of change and the kind of Nigeria that we want.
Let us look at the journalism institution itself.
Yes.
Mainstream media, you have listed some of its inhibitions. The resources are practically not there to engage in in-depth, investigation and all that. And that's why we're so happy. The likes of you, I'm talking about MacArthur Foundation now, are coming into the fray. But mainstream media still remains very important. How would you advise them, since they should still be, in the epicenter of the fight on corruption?
Yes.
How do you advise them to act out, to behave towards the phenomenon?
And also, it is actually also their constitutional responsibility, because this is one of the few countries in which the media and the press have been identified as one of the institutions with the responsibility to hold government public accountable.
We call it the fourth estate of the realm.
The fourth estate of the realm, So what we are trying to do, one is actually, we are very mindful about the business environment and the business models that are coming up all over the world, not only in Nigeria, but all other parts of the world. So we're very mindful of the fact that advertisement is now being driven to the social media. We know that somebody like Linda Keji can get more advertisement than what Daily Trust or what the Punch or the Vanguard or any of these newspapers can get in other things. So we have to be thinking creatively. One of the things that we have been thinking about and talking to a number of people is, what are the successful business models for running media itself? How can media adapt to the reality that it is competing with 25 million people, Nigerians who are on Facebook, who are also newsmakers and who are technically journalists, because they can break stories, they can do whatever they want to do and other things. How do we make them to be much more sustainable, so that all these social influencers in the social media and other things don't drive all the advertisement money and then they are left high and dry? So that is one conversation that we are trying to push along with them in terms of, what are the successful media models that we have seen in Nigeria, but also in other parts of the world? Is it through subscription? Is it other innovative methods? Is it support from foundations and other sources of funding that they can have access to? Or how do they adapt themselves so that they are also breaking the news, so that people can actually drive and the advertisement can be driven in that direction and other. So that is one. But I think that we sympathize and we understand some of the pressure that they are going through in terms of the business models and how they are really challenged by the situation. But at the same time, I think we also have to keep on reminding them what is the purpose and what is the reason why we established the media itself. The media itself, I think, in addition to being a good business, but it also has a public conscience and public responsibility in holding, because it is supposed to hold people in power to be accountable to the lower people in society and other things. So that noble and value of being a journalist, as someone who tells the story that others, who are they going to be the eyes and the ears of the general public? The general public that may be in my village, or in your village, or in any other village where they don't have access to those kind of information and other things. So I think that is something that we need to continuously drive in their mind, and the importance as to why do we need institutions like the business and the media, so that they can continue to play the role that we are expecting them to play.
Now you must, you are not restricted, you are not restricting, I think MacArthur Foundation is not restricting itself to just supporting media organizations.
Yes.
You're also doing a lot of training.
Yes.
What will you say, since you started this focus, have been the results? Are you happy? Are you actualizing your aim? Are you seeing the efforts of these media organizations you are supporting getting results out in the manner you want them?
Well, first of all, I think we appreciate that the fight against corruption is not going to be a 1 week affair. It's not going to be 2 weeks. It's not going to be 3 weeks. It's not going to be 1 year, 2 years, 3. So we appreciate that this is a very difficult and challenging environment that all of us were dealing. But let me say that in the last 2 years that we are working, definitely I think that we have seen increased critical investigative reports that have come out of our media houses and other things. We support, as I said, now we support a range of media organizations and houses in Nigeria, and many of them have come out with very good and excellent reports. And government have been paused on many of those cases actually to respond to some of the reports that have been given. I think that there are a number of reports either from Premium Times or from Daily Trust or from International Center for Investigative Reporting or from Sahara Reporters and others who have really come out with a number of very good critical reports, and the cable as well. And government have been forced to respond to those kind of things. So we're very excited actually to see that government is being forced, is pushed. If it is left for government will probably like to lay some of these issues laid down. I don't think that they would have been responded to in any of those kind of things. But I think that the constant pressure on the part of the media has been very important and critical. But in doing this work with the media, one of the things that we realize is that how do we connect them with civil society groups and organizations? Because as you know, media houses today they have one headline, then tomorrow they will have another headline,
and the first headline is gone.
The first is gone. So I think that so the challenge is how do you connect the media with civil society groups and organizations so that these people, civil society group who are advocates, this is their responsibility, I think, so they can take the reports that are coming out of the media houses and they use it in order to do the advocacy work that they want to do. So I am hoping that you will also have the opportunity to work with some of the civil society groups and organizations, so that when they hear something coming out of this report and other things, and you can also use some of their reports, because some of them also have very good reports that are coming out from the work that they are doing, but they need the voices of the media to speak them louder than what they can do.
Yeah, quite engaging moments with Dr. Kole Shetima, Director of Africa, the MacArthur Foundation. Of course, public conscience is coming by virtue of support from the MacArthur Foundation. And like he said, we're also working with a lot of groups that are working, the Premium Times of this world, the Daily Trusts, all the groups that are working, digging up stories. We are going to be working with them, and they will be coming here. And the program is produced by Primorg, the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development. Of course, you can also, I guess that we should begin to tell our listener that they can be part of the program.
Oh, sure. The listener can reach us through our WhatsApp number 0902 265-6167.
The public conscience is not just about corruption. We also flip to see those whose daily lives reflect integrity. So we are not just going to be conversing in the next on this program about the stories of corruption, but there are those whose duty in Nigeria as NGOs, responsible organizations, to fish out those who are doing very well, resisting corruption. So our second guest, Friday Ode, is the Country Director, Accountability Lab Nigeria. And he's here to let us know that there are many Nigerians who are resisting corruption in so many ways.
And I would like to ask Mr. Ode to please tell us what Accountability Lab Nigeria is really all about.
Thank you for having us at Accountability Lab, and thank you for support donors, MacArthur Foundation. We're so glad to be here. Accountability Lab is a young organization which came into Nigeria about 2 years ago. So we operate from the United States in DC and have offices in Nepal, Pakistan, Mali, Liberia, and South Africa, and Nigeria. We joined them recently. So one of the things we do is we try to make the anti-corruption fights more interesting by engaging young people to tell story of government officials who are working for the public good, who are doing the great things, who are doing the right things, who are working to ensure that public resources are used for the right things. So one of our major programs which we do is Integrity Idol, which is supported by MacArthur Foundation. So what we do is we name and fame honest government officials in government, basically at the state level, at the local government level, at the federal government level. So basically we look for honest government officials working in these spaces, identified by volunteers who are around Nigeria. So we engage young people to tell their stories. So there's a nomination phase where people from anywhere, as far as you're a Nigerian working for government.
You're concentrating only on government, those who are working in government, or even private individuals, people who are working at their own levels?
No, so
there are private people who are also honest.
We have looked at one of the issues with Nigeria is the corruption issues, which is as a result of the budgets, which everybody wants to be part of the national cake. So most of the times we know it starts from the government officials.
Now, what are those characters, actions, inactions, behavior of citizens, these government officials that you identify in your accountability lab?
The project is called Integrity Idol. We have come to understand that Nigerians as a whole, we have different perspectives of integrity, of the definition of integrity.
Some people think that it's only when you don't take money that's integrity, but it's a lecturer in the university who does not who doesn't compromise his work, who doesn't ask for sex or money. It's also having integrity.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be money.
One of the idols from 2017 is Dr. Igbolo from University of Abuja. Unfortunately, she is in a space where we now have to talk about gender and integrity. So she is a female lecturer who lectures in the University of Abuja, who doesn't have access to taking bribes because she's a person of integrity. Now, if we switch over the sides and imagine there's a male who is the lecturer, certainly we come up with the situations where students, especially females, are not able to pay bribes. Now, they in turn give sex in that regard. So that is what we call, look at gender and integrity and talk about sextortion and how that is a part of corruption. But she has been exemplary in her own space, not taking bribes, trying to make sure lecturers don't even pay for grades. Because we've seen situation, and she's also a success story where she has told us where a couple of people come to her.
Where students don't pay for grades.
Students, for our own situation, she doesn't accept, even people come, she says, go back to your class and read your book. So we're trying to bring up students, like one of the things that Integrity Idol does, even at the Accountability Lab, we work with young people to groom them. So we have also seen a situation where people join the public service for the wrong reasons. So you are either joining for pension, you are either joining to get a contract, you are either joining to make fast money. We want to change this country in a positive light. We want to tell positive stories of positive civil servants doing the right thing. It's difficult. The first year we came into Nigeria, one of the things we also saw in Nigeria is social norm is a big issue. When we came into Nigeria, we started the Integrity Idol program. We spoke to a couple of people, and we still don't believe we have people of integrity in Nigeria. So it was quite difficult for us, and we had to flip the side and say, even out of the 900, even 99 is corrupt, we must find one person. We must find one person.
They are there.
Yes. So we are looking for these people. Currently, nominations are ongoing. If you have any person of integrity, working for government,
they should just hit the
Please, we even have the Accountability Lab. You can reach us on social media at Integrity Idol NG. You can also send your message to the WhatsApp number that has been given online.
I'm sure you'll have time to tell us about fair processes to employ. But I want to talk about the concentration on young people. It's quite good because they are the future. If any man wants to build a company now and he looks upon me after 60 to be one of the cornerstones, I'm going to tell him, you've got something to think about there. Maybe one or two nuts are loose. But still, the elderly people are important in this fight on corruption. You must have a slice of the bread for them.
So we have our statistics for nomination. One of the things we've seen, we break down our statistics for people. For the nominations we receive, we have age 20 to 30. And we have 31 to 40, we have 41 to 50. And one of the things we have seen from nominations, most of the nominations we get are between the age grade of 41 to 50. So we still have people in that space who are still being nominated, doing great things. And one of the things we look at Integrity Idol is you must have 5 years before retirement, and you have joined 5 years after. Before you are qualified to participate.
Okay, we are going to open the phone lines now, but I want Dr. Kole Shetima to have a say here. When we talk about corruption, there are Nigerians who are resisting corruption, and I believe the Makato Foundation identifies this. That's why you're also supporting the Accountability Lab. Yes. What is the success story so far in this area? How are they inspired? What is the inspiration that we are driving in this area? Identifying those who are resisting corruption and making them to be models for Nigeria. What do you see in this short period? Do you have anything to tell us?
Yes, I do. I just want to reinforce the point that, if you read any of the Nigerian newspapers any day, the impression you get is that everyone in Nigeria is corrupt.
Yes.
And actually, many Nigerians, open their mouths and say, everyone is corrupt in Nigeria and other things, which actually then send the wrong signal that corruption is the norm, is the right behavior to do, and that anyone who is doing different is not a real thing. So what that means is that whenever we talk about, there was a book that was written at the end of the colonial rule about who is a good person in our society. And at that time, the first person identified was the judge, the second one was the teacher, and the other one was the traditional ruler. Now, you can see, if you flip it now in Nigeria, this was a community survey, who is a good person. If you think of a good person, who are you really thinking about? The judge, the teacher, and then the traditional institution.
These happen to be people who don't see money every day.
Exactly. And so now if you ask who is a good person in Nigeria, I'm sure that those people, probably nobody is going to mention them. I think they will be looking out to some rich person, some big politician who have built so many mansions, so many things. So the whole idea of who is a good
somebody
person,
who has given scholarship, it doesn't matter where I stole the money.
Exactly. So as long as you can get the money and do whatever you want to do, then you are the role model. And the challenge is that the younger generation of people who are coming around, and therefore they have never seen the perception that a teacher, a primary school teacher, actually is good as a good person. Because unfortunately, the primary school teacher now, no one even wants to give a rent to a school teacher because they know they will not be able to pay their own rent in the house and other things. So they have been so the whole assumption about what a good person is has totally changed our society. And so I think that the idea of integrity idol and the work that we are trying to do and say that, look, there are actually good people in Nigeria, and there are actually people who have done a lot of things in Nigeria and other things, and so it's to promote those people, to try to show and shine light on them and say, look, there are ordinary Nigerians who are making extraordinary changes all across society and other things.
All right, we're opening the phone lines, 094 600 951. Dr. Kole Shetima, Director, Africa Makato Foundation, is still with us here. And we also still have the Friday Ode, Country Director, Accountability Lab, Nigeria. Both of them, and with us, will be reviewed. If you have questions, if you have contributions to make, you can call us on those numbers as we still continue with the dialogue on the way forward with investigative journalism, identifying stories that talk about corruption, as well as identifying Nigerians who are resisting corruption with a high level of integrity wherever they are. So that Nigerians are still good after all.
It is still good to be good in good old Africa. Let's take a call, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. My name is Hope.
Your name is Hope. Where are you calling from?
I want to quickly say, not only taking money or collecting sex is the bribe. What about not showing in the class but you're selling handouts? What about not even showing in the class but your students are doing one thing or the other in the favor of maybe sending them something, telling them to pay for to go, like for example, let me show an example for Abuja University. For you to be able to get handouts, you have to go to a particular business center and pay so amount for your copy to be photocopied for you. If you don't go there, you can't get the handout. So is that not corruption? What of when they needed you in your duty post, you are not there? What of going to work at late? Are they not corruption?
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's give some other persons the opportunity. These are waiting questions. Hello. Please tell us your name and where you are calling from.
Yeah, my name is.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I thank you again. I think the great on this issue, and I really, what I want to say is that not everybody in Nigeria is corrupt, because here I'm living an example of some people who are not corrupt in Nigeria. So I don't believe everybody in Nigeria is corrupt. Thank you.
Yeah, that is correct. That is why we are.
I wish he had told us how he has been outstanding and exceptional. He just took the glory.
But many
Nigerians, the action.
Many Nigerians
okay.
are outstanding. Many Nigerians are outstanding, and they are not corrupt. I will have another person on the line. Tell us your name, and I'll go straight to the point.
My name is Okam. My question I really want to ask. Yes, it's good to identify some quality people and then equally. Hello?
We are listening. Go on.
Okay. It's good to identify some quality people who are not corrupt in Nigeria and equally expose those that are corrupt. But my question is, in the history of Nigeria, the people who Nigerians value that are not corrupt or that have been celebrated in Nigeria, once you've held any political position, once you become a minister, a street is named after you. But the poor cleaner that picks money somewhere and then returns that money has never been honored with a national honor in this country. That's one thing that with our reward system is flawed. Then secondly, the next thing, even if you see in the government, you still identify some people that are corrupt, because what Nigerians don't really know about corruption is just they embezzle money. No. Like somebody in this government that they called one of the states as Okonobla. They said it's WAEC. WAEC has come out to identify that it's WAEC is fake, and he's still in government.
And the university he attended also came up to identify. Yes, yeah,
that he's fake, and he's still honoring himself as not a senator, as a barrister. And then look at the other issue of somebody not serving NYS. Why I finished? I've never been to Benin. I went to Benin and served and drank well water. And somebody came and said he's a graduate serving Nigeria as a minister and he never did the NYS.
I agree with you. Those are all forms of corruption. Thank you for calling.
Anthony, good to have you on here again.
Thank you.
And thank you to MacArthur Foundation people. But I only want to advise them not so much identify with government people, because I had Dr. Shetima saying that Professor Osibanjo called them to come and assist them, because the reason why I'm saying this is it looks like in Nigeria, the moment you get into politics, sincerity, integrity has a different meaning and a different definition, because these are people that you will see something on the street is blue, and when they are talking to us, they tell us it's green. I love the last person, the last caller. He said it all, gave you a good example of the Okonobla of man. So if you have all these men, they are still in offices, they are still the ones speaking for us. People in the international community are looking at us. They know we are not serious. The policeman who is on the street, who is doing his job, just go to traffic light by junction here. There was a day a customer was coming to see me, and they stopped her. Even when she said she didn't have money, they gave her account number to transfer 5,000.
All right.
And I saw the alert on the phone.
We just need to stop you now because our time is up. We want to appreciate you for calling in onto Public Conscience. And we have some mails from information from our WhatsApp platform from Victor. And he said he has a question. Is nepotism not corruption? Let me allow my guests in the studio to respond to some of the issues as we wrap up the program. Dr. Shetima.
Well, I think that the broadest definition of corruption is use of power for personal gain. So whatever you find yourself, when you use your power for personal gain, that is corruption.
Yes.
Whether on the streets, in the classroom, in the hospital, on the road, or whatever
you as a journalist, everywhere.
Or journalist, whatever you do, once you use your power for personal gain, that is corruption. So I think that all the things that they have said in terms of nepotism or handouts or whatever, I think all these are correct and other things. And I definitely agree that, yes, I think that I have always said that I think in Nigeria, we need to create what we may call a hall of shame and a hall of fame. I think that anyone who is convicted of any corruption, I think we should create a museum and then line them up all the people who have been convicted of corruption. And then we should create also a hall of fame. Whereby
For those
Nigerians who have done good things and other things in history and other things, people can go and see them, like the cleaner that he mentioned who have returned all those money and other things. I think these are all things that, and I think that, ordinary citizens are hardly, really, they are actually victims of corruption. Only those of us who have power and who can use our power can, because corruption is an opportunity crime. You have to have the opportunity in order to crime this one. Yes. If you don't have the opportunity...
Dr. Shetima, is that the reason people say those who are not yet corrupt are those who have not had opportunity?
Well, what I mean by opportunity crime is that you have to be in a position that you have the power and the resources in order to commit that. But when you block the system, in order not for these things to happen, it will not happen. I mean, for example, minimum simple something like the TSA or use of electronic means in order to transfer resources and other things. So if you don't have any relationship with your banker will never come and even talk to you about anything and other things, because all the transactions and everything they are going to do are going to be online. You don't have to see them. You don't have to see them and other things. So for me, that I think that if you look at ordinary citizens and others, all of them are struggling. And even if they are engaged in corrupt practices, just because of the surviving, they are trying to survive a situation that has forced them to do some of the things that. So I sympathize. But the bigger of the problem, the corruption that we see, are the people who take billions and billions of naira and
they must be in government,
and they must be in government. Yeah. Public services that are supposed to be provided for ordinary people are just impacted. Yes, I think it is bad and it's horrible that police will be collecting 20 naira from everybody not everybody, but on many people, except those of us who drive big cars, who can zoom in and zoom out without anybody harassing us and other things. But the big people who take all these billions, and they are the ones who are creating much, much more problem for Nigerians than others.
Quickly, let us know how you react to some of those issues.
Okay, I'll quickly run through what Dr. Kole has earlier said about the judge, the teacher, and the community flipping the narratives. One of the things we have those stories in our selection processes where we have people define integrity. Like I said before, people have different perspectives. We've had people who when we say, why did you nominate this person as a person of integrity?
Yes.
You say it's because he paid my school fees. You say because he gives me money to do this.
You don't care how he got the school.
You don't care how he got the money. So we have those as some of our feedbacks from the nomination process. Also, looking at the business center and where people need to get handouts, not staying at your duty place. During our selection process, we speak to family, we speak to friends, we speak to people around you. We're in partnership with ICPC to help us do the background checks to get this information. So we don't just select people based on
the street, based on nomination. Yes, by people. You depend on people to nominate, but you scrutinize.
Yes. So another thing about the poor cleaner, which is out there, which nobody knows. So we're also hoping that we will be able to partner with the government, Nigerian government, and they will adopt this as a national program. We've seen situations
so that
where
we can have one cleaner getting a national award one day.
We've seen people getting awards. We wrote partnership requests to the National Merit House, Merit Awards. We tried to see how we can, but we've not gotten the feedback yet. So we're also looking how we can give people awards based on merit.
Our time is already up now, and this is where we are going to be concluding. We must express our appreciation to the two guests we have had in the studio, Dr. Kole Shetima, Director of Africa, the MacArthur Foundation, and Friday Ode, Country Director, Accountability Lab, Nigeria. They are brewing, they are searching for Nigerians who are having integrity, who are living above board. And you're also involved in the process because the nomination actually come from the public. We'll be doing this every week, and we'll be inviting you to join us. You send us your information. Let us have your own idea of what it takes to fight corruption in Nigeria. Let us have your idea on what you think it is to live above board in Nigeria. Let us have your idea on what you think government ought to do or should do to be sure that we live above board. And if you want to drop a message for us, 090-2265-6167. 090-2265-6167. And you can reach us on our social media platforms, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, at Official Primorg. Official Primorg. Primorg is P-R-I-M-O-R-G. P-R-I-M-O-R-G. Official Primorg. And you can also give us information through email, info@primorg.org. And we want to thank our guests for coming on the program in this maiden edition of Public Conscience. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for inviting us as well.
Thank you very much.
And Chukwudi Okole-Ugwaja.
First time out, exciting time out. I'm sure we're going to do it again.
Please join us next week as we come back with another episode of Public Conscience. And don't forget to drop us a message. I am Okiria Agbonsuremi, and my colleague has been
Chukwudi Okole-Ugwaja.